Hello, once again, I'm Pastor Jeremy Combs, and I'm here at the Lyford Bible Baptist Church. We're in 2 Samuel chapter 3. We're serving the sire in 2 Samuel, and I want to jump right in because I'm going to try to do what seems like impossible the rate we're going at. But boy, it's such good passages. It's hard to kind of roll through them, but we're going to try to do that and try to finish out the chapter. We'll see if we're able to do so or not. But we start in verse 22. We find Abner has come. He's made an alliance with David. David has sent Abner away in peace, or so Abner thought. Abner was a conniver. Abner was somebody that he was a dog-eat-dog, climb over whatever at any cost. You get what you want. And that seems like sometimes it works, as it does in Abner's, but he's going to meet his match, and eventually you will too. And Abner met his match in a guy named Joab. And Joab is going to come, and it will be the downfall to Abner. Verse 22, and behold, the servants of David and Joab came from pursuing a troop and brought in great spoil with them. So Joab and his men have been off. They've been fighting, probably defending Israel from their enemies, and they've had great victories, and they're bringing in great spoil. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he was gone in peace. And when Joab and all the hosts that were with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner, the son of Ner, came to the king. And he sent him away, and he is gone in peace. And Joab came to the king and said, What hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away, and he is quite gone? Thou knowest Abner, the son of Ner, and he came to deceive thee, and to know thy goings out and thy comings in, and to know all that thou doest. Joab comes in, and when he hears about Abner, he's just beside himself. He starts out, comes into the king, and he doesn't say even your majesty or small talk, or else that's left out. He simply says, well, what are you doing, David? Abner came in, and you have sent him out and haven't kept him here captive or put him away. I mean, who do you think this guy is? Remember, Joab has fought battles against Abner. Joab was with David more than likely as they were fleeing from Saul. And because of this, there's quite the history here of Abner. And Joab scratches his head because Joab's mentality was, boy, if Abner had been here, I'd have snuffed him out like that and we would be done with him. Not to mention, you go back to chapter 2, Joab is not a forgiving guy. His brother, Asahel, was brutally murdered. I guess you could say murdered. That may be too strong. It wasn't battle, but he was slain. There we go. Brutally slain by Abner, and Joab's not going to forgive him. He's not going to forget that. And so he says, David, you've made a mistake. How could you do this? And then he leaves. David, we don't know what he does. David had many things that were great about him. One of his flaws was he kind of overlooked problems. He kind of let problems fester until they were a big deal, and then he dealt with them. And maybe that's the love and mercy, but sometimes our best attributes can also be our greatest detriments. And this is going to be a detriment to David, not only in his dealings with Joab, but with his sons and with many others as well. Well, David decides, I don't know if he's going to think about this or if he's going to think, well, I'll just leave Joab, let him do whatever he wants. If that's the case, David, that's a mistake. Because verse 26, when Joab was coming from David, he sent messengers after Abner, which brought him again from the well of Shiar, but David knew it not. So Joab doesn't confer with David. He doesn't talk to David. He says, this guy, David doesn't know what he's doing. Joab, like Abner, is one that if he could steal the throne, he would. Now, at least I think David, Joab, and probably Abner are wise enough to know David is a mighty man. David has an alliance and is loved by the people, so they never ever make a move to overthrow David. Abner a little, but not much. Joab doesn't until David is gone, and then he seeks to usurp the authority of Solomon. And so Joab is going to go wherever the political winds may blow. And here he decides that David can't handle this. He's Mr. Nice Guy. You know what? This is a dog-eat-dog world, so I'm going to go eat my dog. And when Abner was returned to Hebron. Now, this is fascinating because Hebron is a city of refuge. You say, what is that, Pastor? Well, in the Pentateuch and then in Joshua, we find that there was to be cities of refuge, that if you had killed somebody, you could go to that city, and if you remained in the city walls, you were not allowed to be killed. And this was not so that you could murder and get away with it. You'd go to the city of refuge, there would be a trial, and then if you were found innocent, if you remained in the city of refuge, you were always safe. It was kind of a way that if you were chopping wood with an axe and the axe head flew off and hit somebody, killed them, there would obviously be anger. I mean, we think of even in our day and age where you'd say they did it on purpose, if only they would have taken care of their axe, whatever. Difficult situation, you'd go to the city of refuge, there'd be a trial by the elders, and then they would determine, no, there was no negligence there, so you stay here and nobody can hurt you. Abner had obviously slain Asahel, but that was in battle, so that would not be considered a murder, so he's really protected within the walls of Hebron. That's going to be very important as this plays out. And so Joab took him aside in the gate, so he takes him out of the gate. You see how subtle he is? He kind of puts his arm around Abner and says, "Hey, Abner, this is great. You're on our side now. Come here. Let's talk. I think maybe you could take over the army." I mean, whatever Joab says, we don't know, but it must have been good, okay? Because Abner, kind of very foolishly, follows Joab. He took him aside to the gate, verse 27, to speak with him quietly. Hey, there's some important things I want to share with you. Maybe even he's saying we could overthrow David. We don't know what they're talking about. But he quietly takes him out and he smote him there under the fifth rib that he died for the blood of Asahel, his brother. Doesn't do it for David. Doesn't do it for the nation of Israel. It is a pure, vengeful murder that Joab carries out against Abner. And it's fascinating. I even went back and looked it up. He smote Abner under the fifth rib. That's exactly where Asahel is smitten by Abner in battle. And so Joab has been an angry, bitter man. He has kind of plotted and planned this out, and he murders Abner. Here, we're going to get this right today. Abner, the same way that Abner had killed his brother. And afterward, verse 28, when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before the Lord forever from the blood of Abner, the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab and on all his father's house, and let there not fall from the house of Joab one that hath an issue, or that is a leper, or that leaneth on a staff, or that falleth on a sword, or that lacketh bread. We find David's response is interesting. He immediately makes a statement to say that, myself and Israel, our kingdom, we're guiltless of this. We never intended for this to happen. And that's probably true, although David probably could have been more proactive and could have said, now, Joab, I want you to stay here and we're going to work with Abner. But he doesn't. And he's very quick to say, this is not me. In fact, he says, this is all on Joab. So why doesn't he deal with Joab? Again, that's kind of a trait of David. He kind of kicks rocks down the road and doesn't deal with things until they're a major problem. And Joab's going to become a major problem. And he's going to defy David and hurt David in many ways. It's sad, he's going to hurt him in many ways, but he's going to help him in many ways as well. And David really pronounces a curse upon Joab. He says, in his father's house, let there not fail from the house of Joab one that hath an issue, that have medical problems, leprosy, one that leaneth on a staff, that is, you'll be weak and old, one that falleth on the sword, that would be someone that would injure or kill themselves, and then one that lacketh bread. Boy, David really says this is a bad situation, and you know what? God's going to bring this back on you. And in a lot of ways, he does. Through many different means, Absalom is going to burn Joab's fields. We're going to find that eventually Joab will be put to death because he tries to usurp and overthrow Solomon. And so that will come true. But David, not real proactive there. So Joab and Abishai, his brother, slew Abner because he had slain their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. Verse 30 is intriguing to me because I do tend, of the three, we don't get a lot on Asahel, but I tend to like Abishai. It's a great story. He was much like his brother, but he comes more like David. You know what? A man sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the counsel of his friends. You need to choose godly friends. You are who your friends are, or you soon will be, is what I've always heard. And that is so true, that people find people who they're like to hang out with. You find a teenager or even an adult that's always hanging out with people that cuss and swear and drink and do things they ought not do. You say, how does that happen? Well, that's kind of where their heart is. And if it's not, and they're just being foolish, they eventually will be like them. And Abishai, David's going to really intercede for him. Abishai already has had one occurrence with David where he wanted to kill Saul. And David said, no, he's the Lord's anointed. We don't do these things. We don't take vengeance into our own hands. God's going to take care of him. Unfortunately, Abishai hadn't quite learned the lesson here. He'll learn it through a guy by the name of Shimei, who we referenced. I think we referenced him last time, who's going to come out and curse David. And Abishai says, let me go out and remove this dog's head. I kind of like guys like that. But David restrains him, and to his credit, Abishai learns. But what did he do? We don't know, but evidently they planned. Maybe Abishai was the messenger that went and got Abner, but the Bible does put some blame here on Abishai and on Joab as well. And so David said to Joab and all the people that were with him, rend your clothes, gird you with sackcloth, and mourn before Abner. And King David himself followed the briar. So this was the idea of we're going to mourn. You know, for us, it would be we're going to put on our black colored, dark colored clothes. Well, we're not going to be celebrating. We're going to follow and we're going to mourn this man. And David followed the briar, or the funeral procession himself. And they buried Abner in Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. Is this remorse? David, I think, really did want to see things restored and hated any of the bloodshed. But again, you can't also help as David trying to absolve some guilt here by going through some things rather than just dealing with the problem and making it right. And the king lamented over Abner and said, Abner died as a fool dieth. Well, how did he die as a fool? He left the city of refuge. Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet put into fetters. As a man falleth before wicked men, so falleth thou. And all the people wept again over him. Wow, this is his eulogy, and here it is. Joab's standing right there, and he says, you're a fool. You died as a fool, Abner. That's tragic. Your hands weren't bound, or your feet, because then they could have drugged you outside the gate. You willingly went, and you died before the wicked. Well, everyone's probably looking over wasn't Joab the guy that killed him? Yeah, he was. And it was a wicked thing that Joab did. And when all the people came to cause David to eat meat while it was yet day, David sware and saying, so do God to me, and more also, if I taste bread or aught else till the sun be down. And all the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, as whatsoever the king did pleased all the people. For all the people and all Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to slay Abner, the son of Ner. So David says, no, this is a sad day. This is not a day of rejoicing. There were probably people that wanted to rejoice. Hey, the armies are gone. Hey, basically, the kingdom is ours. And David said, no, we're not doing that. We're not celebrating when something bad happens. Let us be careful. When bad things happen, maybe there's a Christian man or woman that falls, and you kind of smile and think, yeah, they had that perfect Christian family, and look at them now. Shame on us when we think that way. Shame on us even when maybe a wicked man perishes or is judged for his sins, and we kind of smile and smirk. Shame on us. There ought to be more grief in our hearts. There ought to be, boy, if only they would have known the Lord, if only they would have done right. This is a little bit of what David is doing. And the king said unto his servants, know ye that there is a prince and a great man fallen this day in Israel. And I am this day weak, though anointed king. And these men, the son of Zeruiah, be too hard for me. The Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness. David says, Joab wanted to make us stronger, but in many ways made us weaker. And when we do wrong, it always makes us weaker. And he laments, what am I to do with these sons of Zeruiah? Which, as far as we know, there's just two left. There is Abishai and Joab. And David, kind of in frustration, laments both. But you remember towards the end of the book of 2 Samuel, Abishai is actually going to save David's life. Love the story of Abishai. Unfortunately, Joab's doesn't get much better. A couple of high points, not many. Just really a conniver and a vicious, cold-blooded person. And so we leave it there. And we want to thank you for joining us. If you're in the area, join us this Sunday. We're in the book of Luke at 10 a.m. And then in the evening service, we've got a missionary who's going to be with us presenting their field. And they're looking at planting churches in our nation, which is a wonderful thing to do. Hey, thank you for joining us. We'll start chapter 4 next time. God bless you.